Please stop. Please. I beg you. I cried as my father pushed me to the ground while his 4 friends surrounded me. My body was weak, and my voice cracked from too much screaming. I tried to crawl away, but my father pulled me back by my hair. My tears soaked the dirty floor, but no one cared. They laughed. They all laughed like it was a game. I was just a young girl, trapped in a nightmare that never ended. My father, the man who was supposed to love and protect me, had turned into a monster. And every night, his 4 friends came into our small house, and together, they hurt me again and again. I prayed every day for it to stop. I begged my father to have mercy. I cried to God to rescue me. But the nights always came. And with the nights came pain, shame, and fear. That evening after they left, I lay on the cold floor, my eyes swollen from crying. I looked at the cracked ceiling and whispered, "No one believes me. No one knows what they're doing to me. But one day, I will show the world. I will make them see." That was the night I made a decision. I decided I would catch them. I would show everyone what they were doing to me. If no one believed my words, they would believe what they saw. I was going to install a hidden camera. The next morning, when my father went out with his friends, I searched my small room for any money I could find. I remembered I once hid some coins and notes inside a broken old pot in the kitchen. My hands shook as I opened the pot, and I almost cried when I saw the money still there. It wasn't much, but maybe it would be enough. I wore my torn dress and ran out of the house, looking over my shoulder to make sure no one saw me. I walked far, past the market, to a small shop that sold old electronics. "Do you have a small camera?" I asked the shopkeeper, my voice soft and fearful. He looked at me strangely. "What do you need it for, little girl?" I looked down and whispered, "It's for school." He nodded and gave me a small black camera, no bigger than my hand. I held it tight against my chest and ran home as fast as I could. Back in my room, I hid the camera behind a torn curtain that faced my bed. It was small and quiet. No one would see it. I sat on my bed and waited for night to come, shaking in fear but holding on to hope. That night, just like always, I heard their voices outside. My father's laughter echoed through the hall. My stomach turned. I wanted to scream and run away, but I forced myself to stay. "This is the last time," I whispered to myself. "The last time they will ever do this." The door creaked open. The smell of alcohol filled the room. My father walked in first, followed by his friends. "Look at her," one of them said. "She's scared again." They laughed as my father locked the door behind them. My heart pounded like a drum. I looked at the curtain, knowing the camera was recording everything. For the first time, I felt a small bit of power. I wasn't just a victim anymore. I had proof. But as they began their wicked act again, my heart broke into a million pieces. The camera captured every scream, every tear, every cruel laugh. I closed my eyes and prayed that soon, someone would see the truth. When they finally left, I crawled to the corner of the room and pulled the curtain aside. The camera's small red light blinked softly. It had recorded everything. I took it out carefully, hiding it under my mattress. For the first time in a long while, I felt a tiny bit of hope. The next morning, I woke up early. My father was gone, and I was alone. I took the camera and replayed the video on the tiny screen. My hands shook as I watched the horrible scene. My face was covered in tears again, but I forced myself to keep watching. "It's real," I whispered. "I have proof." But then a new fear filled my heart. What if they find the camera? What if they destroy it? What if no one believes me even with the video? I hid the camera again and decided I would show it to someone. But who? My mother died when I was small. I had no one else in the house. I thought of the pastor at the church nearby. Maybe he would help. So that afternoon, I took the camera and walked to the church. The pastor was sweeping the floor when I arrived. "Good afternoon, sir," I said softly. He smiled. "Hello, child. What brings you here?" I need help, I whispered. Please, I need to show you something. He frowned. What is it? I looked around to make sure no one was watching, then held up the camera. My father and his friends. They hurt me. Every night. And I have it on video. The pastor's face went pale. What did you say? Please, I cried. You must believe me. I recorded them. He slowly took the camera from me and pressed play. His eyes widened in shock as he saw the video. He covered his mouth and whispered, "Oh Lord, oh no." He turned to me, his eyes full of tears. You poor child. You don't deserve this. You must not go back home. But before he could finish, a loud voice shouted from behind us. What are you doing here? It was my father. He had followed me. I froze in fear as he marched toward us, his face red with anger. The pastor hid the camera behind him, but my father had already seen it. Give me that camera, he shouted. The pastor stood tall. No. You will not touch her again. My father's friends appeared at the church door. They looked furious. The pastor turned to me. Run. Run now. I ran as fast as I could, tears streaming down my face. I could hear my father yelling behind me, calling me names, threatening me. I didn't know where I was running to. I just wanted to be safe. My heart pounded as I turned into a narrow alley. My legs were weak, but I didn't stop. I could still hear their voices chasing me. I ran into an old abandoned house and hid behind a broken wall. My body shook with fear. I prayed they wouldn't find me. I listened quietly. The voices grew louder. They were close. Then, suddenly, I heard footsteps outside. My breath caught in my throat. Had they found me? Was this the end? If you are enjoying this story, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more powerful and emotional stories that teach lessons of courage, truth, and hope. Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next chapter. I pressed my back against the cold, cracked wall of the old abandoned house, trying to make no sound. My heart beat so fast I thought it would jump out of my chest. My father's angry voice echoed outside, calling my name again and again. Lucy. Come out now, he shouted. You can't hide forever. I covered my mouth with my hands to stop myself from crying out loud. My eyes were full of tears. I was so scared. His footsteps grew closer. I could hear his friends too, laughing cruelly as they searched. One of them said, "We'll find her. She can't run far." I prayed silently. Please God, don't let them find me. Please, protect me. Minutes passed like hours. I stayed very still, afraid even to breathe too loudly. Finally, the voices began to fade. I heard one of them say, "She must have gone the other way." Then silence. I waited a little longer, just to be sure. Then I slowly stood up, my legs shaking. My body hurt from last night's abuse. My clothes were torn, my face dirty with tears and dust. I looked around the dark house, broken windows, spider webs, empty rooms. It wasn't safe, but it was all I had. I whispered to myself, I can't go back home. He will kill me. I have to stay away. But then I remembered, the pastor still had the camera. He had seen the video. He knew the truth. Maybe he could help me. Maybe he could call the police. I decided to wait until night before leaving the old house. When it was dark, no one would see me walking. I sat in a corner, hugging my knees, thinking about my life. How did it all become this bad? I used to think my father loved me. When my mother was alive, he was kind. We were poor, but we were happy. My mother used to sing songs and cook food for us. I loved her so much. But when she died, everything changed. My father started drinking. He became angry and cruel. He stopped caring. Then one night, he brought home his friends. I was only 13. They told me to serve them food. I did. But after they drank too much, they came into my room. That was the first night they hurt me. I thought it would never happen again. But it did. Every night. For many years. I screamed, I cried, but no one helped me. The neighbors pretended not to hear. My father told them lies, that I was mad, that I made up stories. And they believed him. Now I was all alone. But this time I had proof. The camera had recorded everything. The pastor had seen it. There was still hope. When night came, I crept out of the house quietly. The streets were dark, with only a few lamps glowing. I wrapped a torn scarf around my head and walked quickly to the church. When I reached the gate, I saw the pastor sitting outside, holding a small bag. He stood up quickly when he saw me. "Lucy, thank God you are safe," he said softly. I ran to him and hugged him, crying. I was so scared. They were chasing me. "I know," he said gently. I hid the camera. They came to the church shouting, but I told them I didn't know where you went. "Do you still have the video?" I asked. He nodded. "Yes. I watched it again. It's terrible, Lucy. You were very brave to record it. We must take it to the police tomorrow morning." I wiped my tears and asked, "Will they believe me?" The pastor smiled sadly. "With this video, they will have to. But tonight, you must stay somewhere safe. You can't go home." He led me to a small room behind the church. It had a bed, a blanket, and a small lamp. "You can sleep here tonight," he said. "I'll bring food." I sat on the bed and whispered, "Thank you, sir." He nodded and left. I ate a little food and lay down. It was the first time in many months I slept without fear of someone hurting me. But deep in my heart, I knew my father would not give up easily. He was dangerous. And if he found out the pastor had the video, he might try something terrible. The next morning, I woke up early. The pastor came with the camera and said, "Let's go to the police station." I followed him quietly. My heart was beating fast. I had never been to a police station before. When we got there, the pastor told the officer everything. The officer looked shocked. "Are you sure about this?" he asked. The pastor nodded. "We have a video. It's all here." The officer watched the recording with a serious face. When it ended, he stood up. "This is a very serious case," he said. "We will send officers to arrest your father and his friends." I felt tears of relief. For the first time, someone believed me. But just as the officer was writing his report, another officer ran in, shouting, "Sir, there's trouble at the church." A group of men broke in. My heart dropped. I knew it was them, my father and his friends. The pastor and I rushed out with the police. When we reached the church, the door was broken. My small room was torn apart. Everything was scattered. "They were here," I whispered. "They know I came to you." The police looked around and said, "They must be hiding somewhere nearby. We'll find them." But I was scared. My father was not only angry, he was desperate. He would do anything to destroy the proof. The police took us to a safe house for the night. It was a small place where victims stayed for protection. They said they would go looking for my father the next morning. That night, as I lay on the bed, I thought about everything that had happened. My life had changed completely. I had lost my home, but I had found courage. I was no longer silent. Still, fear filled my heart. What if my father found me before the police found him? What if he tried to hurt the pastor? I turned to the pastor and asked, "Do you think he will come after us?" The pastor sighed. "He might. But now the police are watching. You are not alone anymore." I nodded and tried to sleep. But just as I closed my eyes, I heard a noise outside, a loud crash, like glass breaking. The pastor jumped up. "Stay here," he said. I sat up, my heart racing. I heard voices outside. Angry voices. Then I heard a man shout, "Give us the camera, or we'll burn this place." It was my father's voice. He had found us. The police guard outside shouted back, Stay back. You're under arrest. Suddenly, there was chaos, shouting, running, banging. I held my blanket tight, trembling with fear. The pastor rushed into the room. Lucy, stay down. Don't move. I could hear the police trying to stop them, but my father and his friends were wild. I heard one of them say, "We'll get that girl." I cried out, "No, please." The door shook as someone tried to break it down. Then, bang! A loud crash. The door burst open. My father stood there, eyes full of anger, holding a stick. I screamed. The door crashed open, and my father stormed into the room with wild eyes, holding a heavy stick in his hand. His 4 friends stood behind him, their faces filled with anger. The police officer guarding the safe house shouted, "Stop right there." But my father didn't listen. He roared, "Give me the camera." "Where is it?" His voice shook the small room. I screamed and ran to the corner, trembling like a leaf. The pastor stepped in front of me, spreading his arms wide to protect me. "You will not touch her again," he shouted firmly. But my father pushed him aside roughly, his stick raised high. Before he could strike, the police officer fired a warning shot into the air. Bang! The loud sound echoed through the room, and everyone froze. "Drop the stick," the officer ordered. My father's friends panicked and tried to run, but other officers rushed in and blocked the door. A fight broke out. My father swung his stick wildly, hitting one officer on the shoulder. The police tackled him to the ground while his friends screamed and kicked. I covered my ears, crying, "Please stop, please." After a few minutes of struggle, the police finally handcuffed my father and his friends. They looked defeated, their faces full of rage and shame. One officer turned to me and said softly, "It's over now. You're safe." But deep inside, I didn't feel safe yet. My body was still shaking. My heart was pounding fast. I had lived in fear for so long that I didn't know how to feel peace. The pastor knelt beside me and held my hand. "You are very brave, Lucy," he said gently. "Justice is finally coming." Tears rolled down my cheeks. "Will they go to prison?" I asked in a weak voice. The officer nodded. "We have the video as proof. They will face the law." As the police dragged my father and his friends away, my father turned his head and glared at me. "You betrayed me," he hissed. "You'll regret this." His words pierced my heart like a knife. Even after everything he had done, a small part of me still wished he had loved me. But now I saw clearly, he had chosen evil. That night, I sat in silence, staring at the floor. The pastor sat beside me. "It's okay to cry," he whispered. And I did. I cried for my lost childhood. I cried for my mother who wasn't there to protect me. I cried because the man who should have loved me had hurt me the most. The next morning, the police took me and the pastor to the station to make a full report. They asked me many questions about what had happened. It was hard to speak, but I told them everything, from the first night it happened to the day I installed the camera. One of the officers said gently, "You are very strong. Many girls are too afraid to speak, but you spoke up. You saved yourself." After giving my statement, the police said they would take my father and his friends to court. I would have to testify, but they promised I would be protected. The pastor said, "She will stay with me until the case is over." The police agreed. They gave us permission to go back to the church. When we returned, the church felt calm and quiet again. The pastor made me some food and said, "You need to rest now." I nodded, but sleep didn't come easily. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw my father's angry face. I heard his threats. I felt the pain again. Days passed slowly. The police told us that the court date was set for the following week. During that time, I tried to find some peace. I helped the pastor clean the church and sing songs during prayers. The people at church began to notice me. A kind woman named Mrs. Grace gave me new clothes. "You're safe now, child," she said kindly. "You will never be alone again." Her words made me cry again, This time, not from pain, but from kindness. For the first time in years, I felt like someone cared. But even though I was safe, my heart was still broken. I kept wondering, why did my father hate me so much? Why didn't anyone in the neighborhood help me before? One afternoon, while I was sweeping the church floor, the pastor called me over. He said, "Lucy, there's something you must know. The police found out your father and his friends have done this to other girls too. You're not the only one." My eyes widened in shock. Other girls? He nodded sadly. Yes. Your courage to speak up will help them too. Because of you, justice will come for many. I felt a strange mix of sadness and pride. I had suffered so much, but maybe now, something good could come from it. Finally, the day of the court came. The pastor and I went with the police. I wore the clean dress Mrs. Grace gave me. My hands were shaking, but the pastor held them tight. Inside the courtroom, my father and his friends stood with their heads down. They looked smaller than I remembered. The judge asked me to speak. I walked slowly to the stand. My voice trembled, but I spoke the truth. I told them everything. How it began, how it continued, how I was too afraid to speak. And then, how I recorded it all with the hidden camera. When the judge watched the video, the whole room went silent. People gasped. Some cried. The judge looked at my father and said, "What you did is evil and unforgivable. You betrayed the trust of your own child." Tears rolled down my face as I heard the judge's words. The court declared them guilty. My father and his 4 friends were sentenced to many years in prison. It was over. But as we left the court, I didn't feel joy. I felt empty. I had lost a father, but I had gained my freedom. That night, back in the church, I sat under the stars and whispered, "Mama, if you can hear me, I did it. They can't hurt me anymore." The pastor sat beside me and said, "Lucy, this is the beginning of a new life. You will heal. You will grow. And one day, you will help others who are suffering like you did." I nodded. I will. I want to tell other girls. Never be silent. Always speak up. But just as I started to feel peace, a police officer ran into the churchyard, breathing hard. "Pastor! Lucy!" he shouted. We stood up quickly. "What's wrong?" the pastor asked. The officer looked serious. "Your father escaped from prison transport. He's on the run." I froze. My heart dropped. "What? He escaped?" "Yes," the officer said. "We think he might come for you." The world started spinning around me. My knees went weak. The nightmare was not over yet. The police officer's words echoed in my ears like a thunderstorm. "Your father escaped from prison transport. He's on the run." I froze. My heart began to beat so fast I could hardly breathe. The pastor held my shoulders gently, but I could see the worry in his eyes too. The police officer continued, "We've sent out search teams, but we haven't found him yet. You need to stay inside and keep the doors locked. Don't go anywhere alone." Tears filled my eyes again. "But, he's coming for me, isn't he?" I whispered. The officer sighed. "We don't know yet, but we must prepare for the worst." The pastor quickly led me inside the church. He locked the doors and turned on the lights. "Lucy, don't be afraid. You're not alone anymore. The police are with us. God is with us. Your father will not harm you again." But fear still held my heart tightly. I knew how dangerous my father was. He had already lost everything. His freedom, his friends, his reputation. Now he might want revenge. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat near the window, looking out into the darkness. Every sound made me jump. Every shadow looked like him. I kept whispering prayers. "Please God, protect me. Don't let him find me." The pastor stayed awake too. He sat on a chair near the door, holding his Bible. "We will face this together," he said softly. Days passed, but there was no news. The police searched the nearby villages and towns, but my father remained missing. The church became a place of fear instead of peace. On the fourth night, something strange happened. I was sitting near the window when I saw a figure standing across the road, under a tree. It was dark, but the shape looked familiar. Tall, broad shoulders, and a hat just like my father used to wear. My heart stopped. I blinked, but the figure didn't move. It just stood there, staring at the church. "Pastor," I whispered. "I think he's here." The pastor rushed to the window and looked out, but by then, the figure was gone. "Maybe it's just your fear," he said gently, though I could hear worry in his voice. But I knew what I saw. I knew it was him. The next day, the police came again. They told us that 2 guards had been attacked near the town's edge. "He's getting closer," the officer said. "We need to move Lucy somewhere safer." They decided to take me to a women's shelter in another city. It was a place for girls and women who had been hurt and needed protection. When I heard the news, I felt a mix of sadness and relief. I didn't want to leave the pastor. He was the only person who had truly cared for me, but I also knew I couldn't live in fear forever. That night, I packed my few things: the new clothes Mrs. Grace gave me, a small Bible, and a picture of my mother. I also carried a copy of the video, in case anything happened again. Before leaving, the pastor prayed over me. "God, keep her safe. Give her peace. Let her find healing in her new home." I hugged him tightly. "Thank you, Pastor. You saved my life." He smiled sadly. "You saved yourself, Lucy. You were brave enough to speak." The police drove me to the new city. The shelter was a large, quiet building with kind women who welcomed me warmly. They gave me a room with a soft bed and clean sheets. For the first time, I felt a little bit of peace. Days turned into weeks. I began to attend counseling sessions with other girls who had also suffered. We shared our stories, cried together, and slowly learned to smile again. But deep down, I was still scared. I always looked behind me when I walked. I locked my door twice every night. I couldn't forget my father's eyes the last time I saw him, full of anger and hate. One evening after dinner, I sat outside in the garden with another girl named Mary. She had been through pain too. We talked about our dreams. "I want to become a nurse," Mary said softly. "I want to help girls like us." I nodded. "I want to become a counselor. I want to tell others that they can fight back too." We smiled at each other. For a moment, I felt hope. But then, just as we stood up to go inside, I saw something that made my blood turn cold. Across the street, near the fence, a man was standing in the shadows. It was him. My father. I recognized his face, even in the dark. His eyes were fixed on me. I froze in fear. My legs couldn't move. Mary noticed my face and whispered, "Lucy, what's wrong?" "It's him," I said in a shaky voice. "My father. He's here." Mary gasped and ran inside to call the guards. I kept staring at him. He didn't move. He just smiled, a cold, scary smile. Then he turned and disappeared into the night. The shelter guards searched the area, but they didn't find him. The police came again, and I told them everything. They promised to increase security, but I could see the worry in their eyes. That night, I couldn't sleep again. I sat by the window, holding my Bible tight. "God, please, don't let him hurt anyone again. Don't let him hurt me." The next morning, the police found a note outside the shelter gate. It was written in my father's handwriting. The note said, "You can run, Lucy, but you can't hide forever. You are my daughter. You belong to me." I screamed when I read it. My hands shook so badly that I dropped the paper. The police took it as evidence, but the fear in my heart grew stronger. The shelter manager told me, "We will move you again, to a safer place." But deep down, I knew I couldn't keep running forever. I had to face him. I had to end this. That night, I made a decision. I would set another trap, just like before. If he wanted to come, I would let him. But this time, I would record everything again and let the police catch him in the act. I prayed all night for courage. My body trembled, but my heart was firm. I couldn't live in fear anymore. So, I placed a hidden camera near my window, pointing toward the garden. I left the window slightly open and turned off the lights, pretending to sleep. Hours passed. The night was silent. Then, I heard footsteps. Slow, careful footsteps. I held my breath. My heart raced. A shadow appeared at the window. It was him. He whispered softly, "Lucy, my little girl, come to Daddy." I froze. He pushed the window open slowly and began to climb in. I reached for the alarm button near my bed and pressed it. A loud siren went off. The lights turned on. Guards rushed toward my room. My father tried to run, but it was too late. Police officers stormed in and tackled him to the ground. I stood there crying, not from fear this time, but from relief. They handcuffed him again. One officer said, "It's over, Lucy. This time, he won't escape." I nodded, my tears falling freely. "Thank you," I whispered. The hidden camera had captured everything once again. This time, his attempt to break in. Now there would be no second chance for him. But as they took him away, I felt something new inside me. Not just pain or fear, but strength. I had survived. I had fought back. Still, I knew the road to healing was long. My body and heart carried deep scars. But I also knew this: evil would never win again. As the sun rose, I looked out of the window and whispered, "Mama, it's finally over." But little did I know, another secret about my father's past was waiting to be revealed, one that would change everything I thought I knew about my family. The next morning, I woke up with swollen eyes and a heavy heart. The memory of my father's rage and the slap still burned on my cheek. But something else was burning inside me too. Determination. I knew the video on the hidden camera had captured everything from the night before. That was my proof. My chance for justice. My chance to finally escape. I waited until my father left for work with his friends. My hands were shaking as I carefully removed the small camera from its hiding place behind the curtain. My heart pounded as I turned it on and scrolled through the recordings. There it was, everything. Their laughter, their cruelty, my screams, the way they treated me like I wasn't even human. Tears rolled down my cheeks as I watched it. It was painful, but I forced myself to look. This was the truth no one had believed before. And now I had proof. I wrapped the camera in my old shawl and tucked it inside my bag. I needed to find help, but who would I go to? My relatives didn't care. The neighbors always turned away. I needed someone with power. Someone who could listen and act. Then I remembered Miss Clara, my old school teacher. She used to tell me, "Lydia, no matter what happens, always speak your truth." She was kind. She believed me when others didn't. Maybe she would still help me. So I walked quietly out of the house, looking over my shoulder again and again, afraid my father might come back early. My legs trembled as I made my way down the dusty road, clutching my bag like it was a treasure chest. When I reached the school, Miss Clara was standing near the gate, helping children into class. Her face changed when she saw me, shock, then sadness. "Lydia, is that you?" "My dear, what happened? You look so thin, so tired." Tears spilled down my face. I couldn't speak for a moment. Then I whispered, "Miss Clara, they've been hurting me. Every day. My father and his friends. They do bad things." She gasped and quickly took my hand, leading me to her office. She gave me water and tissues. Then gently she asked, "Lydia, are you sure? You must be brave and tell me everything." I nodded and slowly explained everything. The nights of abuse, the fear, the pain, and finally, the camera. Miss Clara's eyes filled with tears. "Oh, my child. I'm so sorry. But you did the right thing by coming to me. We need to show this to the police." I hesitated. But what if they don't believe me? What if my father finds out? He'll kill me. She held my hands firmly. No, Lydia. You're safe now. I will not let anyone hurt you again. We went together to the police station. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely breathe. The smell of the old building, the stern faces of the officers, everything made me want to turn back. But Miss Clara squeezed my hand, reminding me to stay strong. A female officer, Sergeant Grace, listened carefully as Miss Clara explained. When she asked me questions, I answered with a trembling voice. Then I showed them the recording. They watched in silence. The room felt heavy. I couldn't look at the screen. But I saw the shock in their eyes, the disgust. When the video ended, Sergeant Grace slammed her hand on the table. This is evil. We cannot let them walk free. Don't worry, child. We will protect you. For the first time, I felt a small spark of hope. Maybe my nightmare was finally ending. But before they could act, something terrible happened. That night, while I was staying with Miss Clara, someone broke into her house. We heard glass shatter. She screamed. I froze. My heart stopped when I heard his voice. It was my father. Where is she? He shouted, banging on the doors. You think you can take my daughter away from me? Miss Clara quickly grabbed my hand and whispered, Go to the back. Run. I hesitated, terrified. But she pushed me toward the back door. I ran barefoot through the dark, tears streaming down my face, hearing the sound of my father's rage echoing behind me. I didn't stop running. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I had to survive. I hid behind a large tree at the edge of the village, trembling, hugging myself in the cold night air. I could still hear his voice in my head, angry, cruel, promising to find me. The fear returned stronger than ever. But deep inside I also felt strength. I had the proof. The police knew the truth. I would not go back. I couldn't. Then, from far away, I saw flashing lights, police cars. Miss Clara must have called them. I thought I was safe, until I saw another figure moving in the dark behind me. It was one of my father's friends. He had found me. Come here, girl, he hissed, holding a knife. You've caused too much trouble. Tonight, we finish this. I screamed. The sound echoed across the quiet fields. The night air was cold and heavy as I screamed for help. My heart pounded so loud I could hear it echoing in my ears. My father's friend, Mr. James, stepped closer, his eyes full of anger. He held a small knife in his hand, glinting under the faint moonlight. You should have kept your mouth shut, he hissed. Now you'll pay for everything. I backed away slowly, trembling from head to toe. My feet brushed against dry leaves, and I almost tripped on a tree root. My voice cracked as I shouted again. Help! Somebody help me, please. For a moment, I thought no one would hear. But then, from the distance, I saw bright lights, police flashlights cutting through the darkness. Mr. James turned around, panicking. Lydia, stay where you are. I heard a woman's voice shout. It was Sergeant Grace. Mr. James tried to grab me before running, but I slipped away and dashed toward the lights. The officers ran after him, shouting commands. I collapsed on the ground, gasping for air, tears streaming down my face. Sergeant Grace rushed to me, kneeling beside me. You're safe now, Lydia. You did well. You're brave. I couldn't speak. My body shook with relief and fear. Within minutes, the police caught Mr. James trying to escape through a narrow path. They handcuffed him and brought him back. He shouted and cursed, but the officers ignored him. Sergeant Grace placed a warm blanket over my shoulders. You're under our protection now, she said. We'll get the others too. You're not alone anymore. Those words felt like a soft light in my darkness. For the first time I felt seen. I felt believed. They took me to the police station that night. Miss Clara was there too. Her face lit up with relief when she saw me. She hugged me tightly, whispering, "Thank God you're safe." But I still couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw their faces. My father's angry eyes, his friend's cruel laughter, the knife glinting in the dark. I woke up crying, clutching the blanket tightly. The next morning, the police called me into a small office. "Lydia," Sergeant Grace said gently, "we've watched the full footage. It's enough evidence. We've already arrested Mr. James. But we need to arrest your father and the others too. Do you know where they might be hiding?" I nodded slowly. "They usually meet at the old bar behind our house." "Good," she said. "We'll take it from here." That evening, the police set a trap. I waited in the station with Miss Clara while officers surrounded the bar. My heart beat fast as we listened to the radio updates. Then we heard it. "We have them. All suspects in custody." Miss Clara held my hand tightly. "It's over, Lydia. It's really over." Tears ran down my face. I wanted to believe her. But deep inside, I was still scared. Could it really be over? Could my own father finally be behind bars? The next day, I was asked to give a full statement. I told them everything from the very beginning. The first time it happened, how I cried for help, how no one believed me, how I hid the camera, and how I finally found the courage to escape. The officers wrote everything down carefully. Sergeant Grace looked at me with respect. "You're one of the bravest girls I've ever met. Many people would have stayed silent. But you chose to speak. You helped stop monsters." Her words gave me strength. Days passed. The police investigated deeper. They found evidence, bottles, torn clothes, and even my blood-stained bedsheets. Everything confirmed the truth. The news spread quickly in the village. People who once ignored my cries now whispered behind my back. Some looked ashamed. Others came to apologize. An old neighbor, Mrs. Helen, came to see me. "My child," she said, tears in her eyes. "I heard your screams at night, but I was too afraid to speak. I'm so sorry." I looked at her silently. It hurt, but I understood. Fear had kept everyone silent. But I wished someone had been brave enough to help. The day of the trial came. I sat in the courtroom, hands trembling, staring at my father sitting in handcuffs with his 4 friends. They didn't look like men anymore, just broken souls caught by the truth. When the judge called my name, I stood up slowly and walked to the stand. The courtroom was silent. I took a deep breath and began to speak. They hurt me. Every day. They said no one would believe me. But I found the courage to show the truth. The judge watched me carefully. The lawyers asked questions, but I answered each one with honesty. I was scared, but I knew this was my moment to make them face what they did. The prosecutor played the video from the hidden camera. The courtroom gasped. Some people turned away, crying. The judge's face turned dark with anger. When the video ended, there was silence. Only my quiet sobs filled the room. The judge finally spoke. "What these men have done is beyond wickedness. They will face the full punishment of the law." But before the final sentence could be given, something unexpected happened. My father suddenly stood up and shouted, "Lies! It's all lies. She set us up." The guards tried to calm him, but he pushed one and screamed again. Chaos broke out in the courtroom. I froze, my heart pounding. For a moment, I thought he would break free. The judge slammed his gavel. "Enough. Remove him from this courtroom." They dragged him out as he cursed and shouted. I sat down, shaking, tears streaming down my face. Miss Clara rushed to my side, holding me close. "Don't be afraid. Justice will be done." The judge turned to me gently. "You are safe now, child. You showed great courage." He postponed the sentencing to the next day because of the outburst. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind was full of questions. Would they try to escape? Would I ever feel safe again? But in my heart, I knew one thing. I had done the right thing. The truth was no longer hidden. And no matter what happened next, I was no longer a victim. I was a survivor. Dear viewers, Lydia's battle for justice is not over yet. Will her father and his friends finally face punishment? Will she find peace after all the pain? Turn on notifications so you don't miss the next emotional chapter. The morning of the sentencing finally arrived. The courtroom was filled with tension. Everyone was waiting to hear the final judgment. I sat quietly beside Miss Clara, clutching her hand tightly. My heart was beating fast, but I tried to stay strong. I had come this far. I could not turn back now. Across the room, my father sat with his 4 friends, Mr. James, Mr. Cole, Mr. Peter, and Mr. George. They looked nervous, whispering to each other. The guards stood close behind them to make sure there would be no trouble again. The judge walked in, and the entire room rose in silence. When he sat down, everyone followed. Then, with a stern voice, he began to read the judgment. After reviewing all evidence, including the video recordings, the testimonies, and the investigations, this court finds the defendants guilty of all charges: abuse, violence, and criminal conspiracy. Such wickedness against a child, especially one's own daughter, is unforgivable. My father lowered his head. His friends looked away in shame. The judge continued, "Each of you is hereby sentenced to 25 years in prison without parole." The courtroom gasped. I covered my mouth as tears of relief filled my eyes. My father's face went pale. He shouted again, "No! I'm your father, Lydia. How could you do this to me?" I looked straight at him and said softly, "You stopped being my father the day you hurt me." Guards pulled him away as he screamed and kicked. The judge banged his gavel again. Order! Order in the court! When they finally dragged him out, silence filled the room again. The judge turned to me and said gently, "Lydia, you are brave. May you heal from this pain. Justice has been served." I couldn't stop crying. Miss Clara hugged me tightly. "It's over now, my child. It's finally over." But even as I cried, a part of me still felt broken inside. Justice had come, but my heart was still scarred. The pain of betrayal from my own father would never fully go away. After the trial, the police placed me in a safe home for survivors. It was a small center with other girls who had suffered like me. Some were younger, some older. They welcomed me kindly, and slowly, I began to feel like I belonged somewhere. There were counselors who spoke gently to us. One of them, Mrs. Rose, told me, "Lydia, healing takes time. You are not what they did to you. You are stronger than them." Her words touched my heart. For the first time, I believed I could truly start again. Each day, I attended therapy sessions. At first, I found it hard to talk. But gradually, I shared my story. The more I spoke, the lighter my heart felt. I learned that keeping silent only made the pain grow. But sharing it helped me heal. At night, I still had nightmares. I would wake up crying, remembering the dark room, the cruel laughter, the pain. But Mrs. Rose would sit by my bed and remind me, "You're safe now, Lydia. They can't hurt you anymore." Miss Clara visited me every week. She brought me books, new clothes, and sometimes sweetbread from the market. She told me the school children still asked about me. "They miss you," she said. "They admire your courage." One day, she brought a letter from a local women's organization. They had heard my story and wanted to help me go back to school. They said they would pay for everything: books, uniform, and even a small allowance. When I read the letter, I cried again, but this time, they were tears of hope. Maybe my life could truly begin anew. Months passed. I began to study again. At first, it was hard to focus. My mind often wandered back to the painful memories. But each time I opened my books, I told myself, "You're not that scared girl anymore. You are a fighter." One afternoon, during a group meeting at the center, Mrs. Rose asked each of us to share one dream for the future. When it was my turn, I stood up slowly and said, "I want to become a lawyer. I want to help other girls like me." I want to fight for justice." Everyone clapped. Mrs. Rose smiled proudly. "That's a beautiful dream, Lydia. And I believe you can do it." For the first time, I truly felt purpose growing in my heart. But just when life started to feel peaceful again, something unexpected happened. One evening, as I was helping clean the dining area, a police officer arrived at the center asking to speak with me. My heart skipped a beat. "Is something wrong?" I asked nervously. The officer looked serious. "Lydia, we just received news. One of the men, Mr. George, escaped from prison last night." I froze. My body went cold. "Escaped? You mean, he's free?" The officer nodded. "We've started a manhunt. Don't be afraid. You'll be under protection. But we needed to tell you immediately." All the fear I thought I had left behind came rushing back. My hands began to shake. Mrs. Rose put her arm around me. "You're safe here, Lydia. We won't let anyone hurt you again." But I couldn't sleep that night. Every shadow in the room looked like a figure creeping toward me. Every sound outside made my heart jump. I whispered to myself again and again, "You're safe, you're safe." But deep down, I wasn't sure I believed it. Because if one of them was out there, if he found me, would the nightmare begin again? That night was the longest of my life. I lay awake in the dark, staring at the ceiling, my mind racing. The news that Mr. George had escaped from prison filled my heart with fresh fear. Every sound outside, a rustle, a bark, a car, made me jump. My body was tense, and my heart wouldn't stop pounding. Mrs. Rose checked on me several times. "Lydia, try to rest. You're safe here," she whispered gently, but my mind wouldn't calm down. I couldn't stop picturing Mr. George's cruel face, his mocking voice, the way he had laughed during my pain. "What if he comes here?" I asked her in a trembling voice. She gave me a reassuring smile. "The police are watching this place closely. You're not alone anymore." But even with guards outside, I didn't feel safe. Painful memories came flooding back, and it felt like the darkness was closing in again. I hugged my blanket tightly, whispering prayers under my breath. The next morning, Sergeant Grace came to the shelter. Her uniform was crisp, her expression calm but serious. "Lydia," she said, "we're doing everything to find Mr. George. We have his photo across all checkpoints. He can't hide for long. But I need you to be brave." I nodded silently, clutching the edge of my chair. Miss Clara also came to visit that day. She brought me food and sat beside me. "You've already survived the worst, Lydia," she said softly. "This man cannot break you anymore. You have people around you now. You have strength." Her words gave me a little courage. I decided I wouldn't let fear control me anymore. I had fought too hard to let it win again. Days passed. The police searched everywhere, nearby towns, villages, and bus stations. But Mr. George was clever. He knew how to hide. The fear in my chest grew each day, but I also tried to focus on my studies and my therapy sessions. Then one evening, something strange happened. I was walking back to my dorm room after dinner when I noticed a shadow moving behind the tall fence near the shelter. I stopped. My heart froze. I looked again, and saw a figure slipping through the trees. My breath caught in my throat. Could it be him? I wanted to scream, but my voice got stuck. My hands shook as I ran back inside, shouting, "Someone's outside! Someone's watching the fence!" The security guard quickly grabbed his flashlight and rushed out with 2 officers. Mrs. Rose held me as I trembled. Minutes later, the guard returned, shaking his head. "We didn't see anyone," he said. "Maybe it was just an animal." But deep inside, I knew what I saw. That tall shadow, that movement. It wasn't an animal. That night, I barely slept. My eyes stayed open, scanning every corner of the room. Every creak made me sit up. I kept the light on until morning. The next day, Sergeant Grace increased the security. 2 officers stayed at the shelter day and night. She told me, "We won't take chances, Lydia. You're under protection." Still, the fear lingered. Then, one afternoon, while I was reading in the common room, we heard a loud noise from outside, like someone climbing the fence. The officers ran out. Everyone in the shelter screamed. I peeked through the window and saw them chasing a man, tall, wearing a torn shirt, running into the bushes. My heart dropped. It was him. Mr. George. The police chased him deep into the woods. I stood frozen, gripping the window frame, tears streaming down my face. After what felt like hours, they returned, holding him in handcuffs. He was sweating, angry, shouting my name. "You ruined us, Lydia. You ruined everything." I covered my ears, crying, as they dragged him away. Sergeant Grace came back to me and said firmly, "It's over. We have him. He'll never hurt you again." This time, I wanted to believe her. I watched as the police van drove away, and I whispered to myself, "It's over. It's really over." That night, for the first time in a long while, I slept peacefully. No nightmares. No fear. The next day, Mrs. Rose gathered all of us in the shelter. She said, "Girls, Lydia's courage helped catch a very dangerous man. Let her story remind you that speaking up brings justice." The girls clapped, and I felt a warmth in my heart. Maybe my pain could help others. Maybe I could give hope to those still trapped in silence. Miss Clara later told me that people in the village were now forming groups to protect children. "Your story changed lives, Lydia," she said proudly. "You turned your pain into light." I smiled for the first time in a long time. It didn't erase the scars, but it gave them meaning. That evening, I walked outside and watched the sunset paint the sky with gold and orange. I whispered, "Thank you, God, for giving me strength when I thought I had none." But as the wind blew softly against my face, I remembered there was still one thing I needed: to visit my mother's grave. She had died long ago, leaving me in my father's care. I wanted to tell her everything: how I survived, how I fought back, how I was finally free. So I decided the next day, I would go back to the village for the first time since everything happened. It would be painful to return, but I knew it was the only way to truly let go. The police vans surrounded the compound as red and blue lights flashed against the old walls. My father and his 4 friends were handcuffed, faces pale with fear. They looked nothing like the powerful men who once terrorized me. Neighbors gathered around, whispering in shock. How could he do this to his own daughter? I stood behind the officers, my heart pounding, not with fear anymore, but with a new strength. The detective walked toward me, holding a file. "We've confirmed everything. The videos you gave us, they're enough to put them all away for a very long time." I nodded slowly. My hands trembled as I looked at my father one last time. He tried to speak. "Mary, please. I'm sorry." But I turned away. The memories of pain, the screams, the long nights, they couldn't be erased by his words. I had given him chances before. Now justice would speak louder than any apology. The crowd parted as they were led into the van. My neighbors looked at me with a mix of sadness and pride. Some had suspected something was wrong, but no one had dared to speak. Now, the truth was out for all to see. That night, I sat alone in my small room, staring at the empty bed. For the first time, it didn't feel like a prison. It felt like a place of peace. I cried, this time not from pain, but from release. Every tear carried away a piece of the darkness that had once controlled my life. The next morning, a social worker came to see me. "Mary," she said softly, "you are a very brave girl. We'll make sure you have a safe place now. You deserve a fresh start." I smiled weakly. "Thank you," I whispered. "I just want to be free." They moved me to a shelter for young women who had survived abuse. It was filled with others who understood the pain, the silence, the fear. For the first time, I didn't feel alone. I began to heal. Each day, I told my story, to counselors, to other girls, to anyone who would listen. And with every telling, my voice grew stronger. Months passed. I started school again. I studied hard, determined to become someone who could help others like me. My dream was to be a counselor, to help girls find courage the way I did. One afternoon, as I sat in class, the teacher announced, "Today we're learning about justice and human rights." My heart swelled. That was my story. I raised my hand and shared what had happened to me, how I suffered, how I recorded everything, and how I finally got justice. The class was silent. Some cried. Some clapped. After class, a girl walked up to me and said, "Because of you, I'll speak out too." That was when I realized my pain had a purpose. Years later, I became a strong woman with a voice. I stood before a hall full of people at a women's rights conference and told my story once more. "No one deserves to suffer in silence," I said. "If someone is hurting you, speak out. Even if they are family. Silence only protects the guilty." The audience rose to their feet, applauding. Tears filled my eyes. I had turned my pain into power. The lesson was clear: evil grows in silence, but truth destroys it. Now, I live in peace. I visit schools and shelters, sharing my story. I teach girls how to be brave and to trust their voice. I may have been broken once, but I am whole again. As for my father and his friends, they remain behind bars, facing the consequences of their wickedness. And I walk free under the sun, no longer afraid of the dark. If you're listening to my story today, remember this. No matter how hard it gets, never be silent in the face of abuse. Speak up. Seek help. Justice will find you. Because the truth, once spoken, can change everything. Thank you for listening to my story. If you were touched by my journey, please don't forget to subscribe, like this story, and share it so others can learn from it too. Your support helps us tell more powerful and life-changing stories.